Okay, an inverse problem is the one that we're working on right now. An inverse problem is where you are given the actual probability. So in this question, after selling lotto tickets for 5 years, an agent knows that weekly sales are normally distributed with a mean of $3,500 and a standard deviation of $650. What level of weekly sales would the agent exceed 85% of the time? So this question actually gives you your probability, and the area under the curve is 85% or 0.85. So the first thing to do is to draw yourself a curve picture and put your mean on that, and then let's take a look at what they're talking about. So we've got the standard deviation and we've got the mean, and here's the mean, $3,500. And what level of weekly sales would the agent exceed 85% of the time? So you've got to figure out where on the curve 85% is, and what you're trying to find is the boundary line. All right, the boundary line of where that 85% will start. So if we draw a line here, this represents our x. That's the thing we don't know. We don't know what that value is, but what we do know is that to this side here, to the right of that value, represents 0.85. And what level of weekly sales would the agent exceed 85% of the time? So we need to draw the line here. This represents our 0.85, and now we have to find what this actual value is in dollars, what that boundary line is. What would that value be? And then he's going to exceed that value 85% of the time. The next thing to do is to get your calculator up, and let's get into the place where we get into inverse normal. So we go over to stat, we go into stat, into distributions, into normal, and we now have an option of NPD, NCD, or inverse. So we're going to click F3, which is inverse, and you will notice that there's a tail here. Left, right, we can change it to right, or we can say center. If the area that they give you, the probability, is to the right, then you have to put to the right on this thing. Okay? So let's just... So if we take a look at this, in our picture, we have where our x is, and 85% is to the right. So what level of weekly sales would the agent exceed 85% of the time? So we've got to find this value here. And that the area that they've actually given us is the area to the right of that boundary. So on our calculator, we put to the right, the tail is to the right, that's where our probability is. We then put in our area, which is the probability, 0.85. We put in our standard deviation, 650, and we put in our mean, 3,500, and we find that value, 2826. So that tells us that at x right here, that value is 2826 approximately dollars, $2,826. That 85% of the time, this agent is going to exceed that amount of sales.